My name is Jim Ellis. I'm one of the lecturers here at the business school, teaching formation in new ventures, managing growing enterprises, and in the course evaluating entrepreneurial opportunities. And to my left is Evan.
Evan Porteous. I'm just here to enjoy it all. I'm part of the army of instructors.
Our format, before I introduce our guest, our format today is I'll give a very, very brief introduction. We'll ask them to share a little bit about themselves, and then we'll jump into a series of questions. First, centering around what makes a good opportunity, what are the trends that are creating new opportunities in retail, what are some of the bad opportunities people have seen, what are some of the characteristics you might want to consider avoiding, and then probably by the time we get through that, we'll open it up to some questions for you, wrapping up with the panel somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 o'clock or so, 6:30? And then leave some additional time for you guys to chat afterwards. So with that, allow me to introduce our distinguished panel. We feel incredibly lucky here at the business school to have such great and successful entrepreneurs and investors come and share with us their experience. Tonight is no exception. These people have given generously of their time through the years. Many have been involved with the formation of new ventures, with the Evaluating Entrepreneurial Opportunities class for years and years. I'm not going to go through a full introduction. To go through a comprehensive list of accomplishments for these folks would take more time than we have for our entire panel. So I'll start here with Nancy, who is GSB Class of '85. She has a distinguished track record in operating and merchandising roles in retailing through the years. She, including founded a company, Golden Gate Chips. She's held management positions at Macy's West, The Gap, and Lord & Taylor. And as a partner at U.S. Venture Partners, she's invested in and provided management assistance to a number of specialty retailers, including Gymboree, PetSmart, Garden Botanica, and Fresh Choice. To her left is Phil Schlein, also one of the leading retail and consumer investors in the country, helped building U.S. VP's reputation in the space for more than 20 years. With numerous successful ventures. He was also the CEO of Macy's in California, and he has invested in and advised two scores of businesses ranging from Oakville Grocery, on which he is on the board, to PetSmart. To Phil's left is Andy Laats, who is GSB 97, involved in a number of sports, apparel, and consumer appliance companies through the years. He is an entrepreneur, and he and his partner started Nixon Now, which sells watches and fashion accessories in more than 30 countries around the world. And in 2005, he was awarded the E&Y Entrepreneur of the Year Award.
Wow.
That's a prestigious award.
Yeah, that is.
They throw a big party, too. You do it right.
To his left is Jessica Herrin, who also attended the GSB. She is a co-founder. She was the co-founder of the world's leading wedding site, weddingchannel.com, and is currently the founder and CEO of Luxe Jewelry, a company that distributes jewelry products using a direct sales force model. So we look forward to hearing more about that. And then to her left is Brent Knudsen, who is quite an experienced entrepreneur and investor. Once again, he was the VP of Sales and Marketing for both Price Club and Costco and played an important role in their growth from early startup stages through $20 billion in revenue. He has been a manager, advisor, and investor in a number of other successful businesses, including Bell Sports, Red Door Spas, and Naked Juice, just to name a few. So with that, please join me in thanking and welcoming our distinguished panelists. I'm going to, just for the sake of time, jump into some questions, if you all are okay with that. First, starting off with commenting on what are the major trends or unsolved problems that you see in the consumer and retail space, which have the potential to create opportunities for new companies or new entrepreneurs as these folks sit here thinking about ideas that they may want to pursue. Nancy?
Oh, Phil.
Phil.
Well, I jotted some down because I see about 2 plans a day, even on Saturdays and Sundays. But certain trends, the obvious one that you all know, it's been around for 3 or 4 years, the others are going to be even more new, is the social networking. You know, you'll probably all participate in 1 or 2 social networks right now, but certainly that's a trend on the internet. And As you realize, YouTube's was just purchased for a few dollars by Google. Well, that led to 2 Stanford students, they both had their PhDs, developing some technologies that would monetize YouTubes. As you know, they haven't figured out how do you make money by showing these 2-minute videos. Well, they've developed some technology enables them to scan rapidly the 100,000 videos that are on YouTube's and then capture the images so they can find blank space there and know when those blank spaces would be blocked, and so they can put advertising in there so that it appears like it just came with the video. Right? So it came from Stanford very recently. They haven't even been funded yet, other than just some small money, but I just thought you'd be interested since it was started here. And so one whole trend is the ability to monetize things that are on the internet, and many of them need some technology like that to do that. Automated retail. We'll talk about really retail. Zoom. I don't know whether anybody's heard of Zoom. It's a very sophisticated vending machine made by Sanyo. So the Japanese know how to make these things so they really work. They've sold thousands of iPods over the last year. They're in airports. They're in some hotels. And Macy's is putting them in 180 of their stores. There's a monitor there so you can find out about it. Sony is going to use it to sell things. Motorola is also using it. So automated retail, obvious reason, the technology's there so you know who bought what, where they bought it, and what your inventory is in all locations in real time so that you can control that. And the other advantage is labor. No one has to monitor the machine. All you have to do is replenish it. So I do think that's going to be a continued trend. Another one is integrated pharmacies. A company called Pharmaca out of Boulder, Colorado. Basically what they do is they've either start up or take over pharmacies, which are heavily in prescription drugs. If you know the gross margins of prescription drugs, they're around 18 or 19%. So most of these drugstores that you see are marginal. And then what they do is they redo the store and they convert all of the integrated supplements, homeopathic, organic things to supplement the people who have to take drugs on a continuing basis. With the aging population, if you take a drug or for any length of time, you lose some nutrition. So they advise you, and they have people there to advise you. There's 4 of them here. If you want to see them, there's one in Mill Valley, there's one in Sonoma, there's one in Novato, and there's one in Berkeley. And they have 10 or 11, and they just got financed at a ridiculous high price. But anyhow, that's a trend that's going to take place. There's one called the Elephant, which is in that same space. I don't like it as much because it's too big and bold, but that space is some people are interested in health and wellness, and with an aging population, I think that's another one. Again, staying on the health kick for a minute, you might have seen where CVS, the drugstore, bought a company for $170 million. It was they were in 66 of their stores. It's a mini clinic. They have nurses, which you can go see for X amount, $35 or something for a visit. So people who don't have insurance or would just like to can't get into an ER room because they're all so crowded, have the ability to go there, pay $35, and see somebody who can help them with whatever particular illness. There's one here called Quick Health. They're using doctors. So the doctors will be able to prescribe to you. And so the reason Long's and Walmart like it is because you get a prescription and you're right there in a store that can fulfill the prescription, so it's more business for them. But that you're going to see available because there's a real need for people who can't wait 5 hours in an ER room, and the hospitals can't handle them anyhow. And so that's it. I'll move along quicker. RFID, you've probably all heard of that in terms of the ability to track inventory coming in and out of warehouses, and eventually, when they get the price low enough for the tags, that's radio frequency identification. I'm sure you all knew it, but I might as well say it. All right. We have a company called W5. The grocery stores have been looking for years for the ability to do electronic labeling on their shelves, because very often the price on the shelf is not the same as at the register, and it's been bogged down because it just costs too much. And now there's a couple companies working on the ability to do that using the current technology. And we'll see what happens in the next year or two. But it's cheap enough now, they think that the supermarkets are all going to employ it. Some of the states, by the way, have laws that they penalize the supermarket if the prices aren't the same. Organic, I don't need to go into organic. You all know about Whole Foods and organic cotton, and we're all going to be wearing that, so I won't mention that at all. And I think I've said enough, so let somebody else.
Okay, now I'll go after. Phil is always my coach here, so he has to always go first.
That's not true.
But my slant is a little different. It's more low-tech and probably more service-oriented. I've been involved with a startup chain of spas, but how they differentiate themselves is that they're value-priced. So it's not a luxury anymore. It's an everyday type thing because it sort of piggybacks on the aging and the boomers and people wanting to take care of themselves and being healthy. And massage has become much more mainstream. And, you have an example of Massage Envy that you see out there. It's a franchise of spa membership service that you can join and get a great massage for an hour for $49. Spa One, which is the company I'm working with in Tucson, is on that model, except not only massage, they provide top-of-the-line facials and nail services and in luxurious, sort of looks luxurious but doesn't cost luxurious surroundings. I think you'll see a lot more of that. Aging population, people are dating into their 90s and they want to look good. The boomers have changed the whole idea of what it is to age gracefully and healthy and attractively. So along that, you have skincare and cosmetics and exercise, the massage I mentioned, dating at later stages. There's a whole apparel thing. There have been some attempts to come up with better looking apparel for especially older women. I still don't think there's anybody up there that's doing it very well.
Eileen Fisher, maybe.
Eileen Fisher. This is Eileen Fisher. That's about it. They talk about the older woman, but you go in the store and it still looks like a 35-year-old woman in the styling. The Spanx. I'm sure most of the women know SPANX. It's the shapewear. It just took off. And that was started by a young woman, or a not so young woman in her 30s, who said, the bulges are starting to show, and you can't buy anything that really helps you in shaping your appearance under clothes. So she started this in her home, and she was just shown on TV, and how she started her business
It used to be girdles.
It used to be girdles, but then people
That's
didn't wear
before
it.
your time.
Yeah, but this fabric she started in her garage and took it to Nordstrom's and showed them how it could make a big difference. Now you see Spanx in every store in the country. It just took off. That's an example of seeing an opportunity and going after it. Of course, services. Going back to services, I think besides the spas and the massages, people are crunched for time. They have the money. They want services. There's lots of probably other opportunities in the service industry. Franchising. We haven't talked about formats that much, but Massage Envy happens to be a franchise model, and it has done very, very well. Curves before that is still doing apparently very well.
Zubio is a new company. You can get a massage in an airport. In a chair.
I mean, those type of things are really, really hot. The other one that it's a little off the beaten track, but international, and it's not just, the regular countries, but third world countries having well-designed, well-made, ethnic background type of goods. There's like Rug Mark, which is the mark of a really well-designed rug business in Nepal, for instance. And these rugs are top of the line. They're shown in museums, but they're authentic. They're really the ethnic look, but with the high-quality design and quality of materials that they're made out of.
And they protect the workers. Their big thing is to make sure the workers aren't children in those factories.
Right, and the only way they can become the rug mark, it's called, the seal of approval, is that they follow those rules. But you'll see more and more of those opportunities internationally. I'd say it's really the start of that trend. In the past, we've had a lot of, low-end, nice, made-at-home ethnic goods that had not really been at that higher design and quality level. And I think that's really a wonderful area for potential businesses to start. And I think I'll stop there.
Well, I can do the other side of the demographic trend, the Gen Y guys. We focus a lot on 18 to 34, and what we see is that there is no teen market. You guys have heard of Larry Clark, the guy that did the movie Kids. I'm a subscriber of his theory that teen doesn't exist. There's young adult, young people making adult decisions instead of this teen idea, which is not quite ready for adulthood. So adulthood getting pushed out into younger and younger people, and seeing young people respond by wanting to be older and older, and buying things like $250 watches for real no purpose other than just to act older. So on the flip side of the quote of the boomers wanting to be younger, I think the Gen Y guys really want to be older. I don't know where the business is there, but you're all smart. You can figure it out. It's something that makes young kids feel more adult, because I think the world is making them think that way. Plus leases in the UK. If anybody can figure that out, the minimum lease is like 15 years.
Wow.
Like marked down from 25 years. It's just really stifling in terms of starting retail. And they say it's like the lease is the most important thing to any retail concept. I haven't done it yet, but if there's a 15 or 25-year commitment, there's got to be some sort of financial engineering that can get people out of there. Yeah.
I forgot one, personalization. Mm-hmm. Big opportunity, personalize almost everything. Mm-hmm. There's a company called ROI. Again, everything's within the last 2 years, so I haven't given you anything that's simple. And ROI enables you to go to, let's say, Harry and David, and you want to send some fruit to somebody as a gift. You can also personalize a greeting card to go with that, and it will go with that gift. It also is able to personalize plastic gift cards so that you can put your grandchildren's pictures on it and send the $50 card, and they can personalize all that. And lots of companies are now beginning to adopt that locally and nationally. And I think you're going to see lots of different things personalized. As you know, you can do T-shirts now with any design on it, and Zazzle is here, and on and on. But it's a very significant trend to personalize almost everything.
Stamps.com, I love. Stamps.com.
Oh, yeah, well, they got a new business, these guys from Stamps.
I love them. I love that.
That's a GSB.
I can speak to the two trends that Luxe is founded on, and that's DIY. I think you can see that in the media with the boom of HGTV and everybody doing it themselves and kind of getting creative, but in a very simple, kitted, I can do just a couple things way. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of that going on. And then also the trend that I formed a business opportunity on is more what consumers are doing with their lifestyle. So there's a trend towards women staying home again, and that's where the direct sales channel comes in, and where that's a lot of growing, it got a lot of attention, I think, in this community and others when Warren Buffett bought Berkshire Hathaway bought Pampered Chef, which is a direct sales company. But that business opportunity for people to have a part-time income is really growing because there are more women that just need a little extra income and are choosing to stay home. So that's a really big growth
They sell it on
market.
eBay or?
No, it's all home parties.
Yeah.
It's we were joking about how when I was in business school it was all B2B, then B2C, and now I think the new trend is C2C.
Yeah.
It's consumer to consumer, because that the other trend around, especially the DIY and the consumer to consumer, is experience. So not just the product in itself, but the whole experience of buying, the experience around the product, the story that goes with it. I guess in a simple word, it's just the brand, but the brand through activity.
And the networking.
Yeah, and how that all works. So with Luxe, it's a party where you get jewelry, but it's personalized and customized with your consultants, and you can either just do simple customization, and then it's custom made for you, or you actually take jewelry making workshops and learn how to do it yourself. So I think you'll see a lot of, I think there's a lot of opportunity around that, which there's always the woman demographic that controls a lot of the household purse strings, but they also need income to control those purse strings. So those two things together. And there's a lot of traditional retailers going into the direct sales channel. It's been a very profitable area for them, everyone from Crayola to the Body Shop at Home to Jones New Apparel, and all these companies that are starting to pay attention to that consumer to consumer channel. And it is all it's not so different than social networking. It's right. I just tell you this and you trust me, and it's kind of the same sort of trend, but as an activity.
Avon.
It's a $7 billion example. Yeah, that's exactly what they do. Been doing it for a long, long time. So I guess that's not exactly new. But I think that become a new application, and I think that too, what a lot of that space is doing is making it accessible luxury and making things. So it's a lot of what you were talking about too with the spa thing, is making it nice but making it affordable.
Yes.
And I think a lot of these mass channels, right before Martha Stewart went into Kmart, people will buy that if given the opportunity. But before that, great branding, or Target, right? What they've done so well is just the branding and the merchandising. Better than other mass retailers. So taking a branded, hip concept, Luxe has a big celebrity angle. We have a lot of products worn by celebrities, and taking that into the living rooms of Kansas and making something that's hip and accessible through that network.
I'll just give you a couple of some of these have already been mentioned. I made some notes on trends and then some examples. The first is customization, so a little bit like personalization, but customization in nutrition, for example, and some of the companies but you probably don't think of it as custom nutrition. But Ellis, if you use Emergency, they're now very focused on all kinds of different things like joint health, heart health, cold medicine. And if you think about that, they can start to customize, and they are starting to customize to individual needs. So instead of having to take 30 pills in the morning, which I do, you just have like one packet that you put in your water, and has everything really that you need, that's customized for your age, your sex, your energy level, your kind of like everything. I know you know Airborne, but that's another example. Again, you don't think of that as custom nutrition, but it is. It's focused on a particular kind of, and you'll see them doing a lot more particular needs to specialize. So customization in nutrition and focused on individuals. The general theme, I think, there to me is that as the world gets bigger, the kind of consumer opportunities get smaller. So as the world is really big, the opportunity is to focus on smaller niches. Obviously, there are those that focus on really big, but I think the entrepreneurial opportunities are more in the smaller areas. So big worlds, kind of small opportunities. I think integration. Again, the theme there is allowing people to do more in less time. So an example of that is some of the things that some of our companies are doing in integrating, for example, fitness, health, nutrition, and spas. So Equinox, you can get, for example, full nutrition counseling, spa services, fitness, and it becomes kind of a one-stop health center. Similar to that, taking off of that a little bit is in the area of community. Again, same theme of world gets bigger. Some of the retail opportunities in particular get smaller. People need to find niches and places to go, and the three that have done that best on a major basis, I think, are Apple with the Apple stores. People don't go to the Apple store just to buy computers; they go just to hang out, really, and then they buy a bunch of stuff, But I mean, they're tremendous community centers. Starbucks really has made, I think, themselves not only on good coffee, but really it's a community. I had one other example of that. Oh, Whole Foods, really. Again, similarly. I mean, that's people identify with Whole Foods, and so you kind of tend to just go there because it's that becomes your community. Who you are. Another trend or kind of general is focus. The biggest area in health is women's health. 28,000 women ran the Nike Marathon last week in San Francisco. And so you have Athletica, Title IX, just a whole host, Nike's own women. That's by far the highest growth area in health and fitness and areas. But again, then there's the focus on, and Curves has already mentioned, focus on older adults. And you just kind of go through every demographic, and I really like Andy's thing of the young adult, and there needs to be much more of a focus on kind of that young adult group for all of it. So I'll give you an idea for the one that you said. Where's an idea? Somebody's got to do kind of a young adult fitness and health club, similar to Occurs for young people, because schools don't have the fitness kind of programs that they used to. They got rid of them. Same thing with music. I think I saw one last year in S163 in and around music, because I thought that was a great idea. Again, theme of the world. The world is big, and the opportunity is to focus on individual areas.
Well, you got both. I didn't mention one about Whole Foods. You mentioned Whole Foods. There's a knockoff of Whole Foods. Think of Whole Foods at Walmart prices. Store out in Arizona, they got 10 of them. They're doing $115 million.
Wildflower?
Sunflower.
Sunflower, yeah.
Sunflower.
Yep. Yeah, started by guys that were at Wild Oats.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
One more quickly, just to take off kind of the area of focusing around clinics. The other kind of interesting area there is again more focused clinics. So one of our investing partners just invested in a quick clinic for breast examination, for example. There's one for hearing examinations, quick eye clinics. So I think these quick clinics, but focused quick clinics.
Mm-hmm.
You all identified a bunch of great trends, I think, that are helpful for students as they think about them. Can you talk about some of the businesses that you've seen, not necessarily examples, but what are the attributes or characteristics that really draw you into a business, that get you excited about it, that make you think about potentially investing or being involved with it? What do you look for in those types of business ideas or business plans?
I'll give you one. Is that and again, this is the theme back of the small. I look for market leaders. So Andy's company is an absolute, without a doubt, dominant market leader in young adults watches. Just absolute. So I look and kind of back to market definition. In breast clinic examination, find the market leader. The market can be small, but that's what I focus on, is who's the real leader in the market.
How about for emerging businesses? So as students sit here and think about kind of a greenfield opportunity, not necessarily becoming part of an existing player, how
a market that you can dominate, one that's open. And we mentioned a bunch of these areas that are really pretty fragmented right now. So that's what I look for, is a market that, one, is big enough to be exciting, and then two, that there's nobody that I wouldn't try to compete with Whole Foods today, but it was great a few years ago.
When you say big enough, I'm sorry for the rapid questions, because I think this is going to be relevant as everybody shares their information. What does big enough mean to you?
To me, I just think a company has to have a market opportunity to be $1 billion company, And so you kind of do the math and say, if you own, pick a number, 10% of the market and work your way back, could you do north of $1 billion?
Market size is one of the things.
Yeah, market size.
And the growth potential within that market. That's not the only thing. The first thing to start with is management.
Yeah.
Because very often the first concept that sounds good has to be modified to be successful. And there's lots of examples of companies that got started, went in a direction for a while, and then with the right management modified that direction to become successful.
Well, Starbucks. Yeah, Starbucks. We looked at U.S. Venture Partners when it was owned by different people, not Howard Schultz. And they were sort of homegrown hippie type guys, and it was great coffee, but it was a very small company, and it wasn't going anywhere. Very niche player. But then Howard came in, and he had the vision, he had the experience, and he took it, and he made that company. But without him, it would have never gotten to where it was today.
And you look for the business model. Is there a way for them to make money in some things? And what does that model look like, and how much money does it take to get there to become the significant player?
I think also I'm working with a startup company right now, and the guy was an MBA. He was an MBA, very, very intelligent, but he's in an industry he had no experience in, but he's smart. And sometimes smart people think, oh, they can figure it out and know all the answers, but they don't know the industry. They don't know the network of people that they need to call on. They've never walked the talk, and he's made a lot of mistakes. And he's finally hired people in to partner with who come out of the industry, who understand the industry, and now it's moving along in a better direction. So just having a great idea and being smart is sometimes it's the worst thing that can happen to some founders, because they think, oh, we know all the answers, we've had strategic planning, we can figure it out. But a lot of this retail and service is all about execution. And unless you've done it before, been in the industry and feel it, and have a passion for what you're doing and know it, it's going to be very, very difficult to be successful.
And you need to be differentiated. There's got to be a reason for being. There's got to be a need there. It shouldn't be just a nice to have. It doesn't mean nice to have. People don't pay a lot for a nice to have. They pay a lot more for a need.
Yeah, I would just, a $1 billion company is daunting. If you're starting from scratch in an industry you've never worked in, okay, how do I create the $1 billion company? I agree. I don't think it's crazy, because you don't want to pay off your student loans with a $2 million company. But if you're going to get your feet wet in an industry you don't know anything about, I would think that it has to work small,
Yes.
but grow big.
Yes.
And
that criteria is probably based on, what kind of how much financing to what type of investors would be interested in helping you get the business started. But you can start all different things, all different ways.
And many businesses grow to a certain size and then get acquired.
Yes.
I mean, we're going through that stage right now at every level. And the acquiring company has many of the resources and infrastructure to grow the business, and so they'll pay a pretty good price for these businesses. So you can be very successful that way in developing a business and then selling it. One of the things in the consumer products business, very often people make penetration into key markets, and then Procter & Gamble comes along and pays them a lot of money to take it on and make it a nationwide business.
You said business model. I would just boil it down to margin. The less you know about the business, the more I'd want to see the margin. If you're saying, I'm gonna have a 20% GP on a new business and I've never done it before, I would not be excited about investing in your company. But if it's a 60+ GP, there's a lot of room for error. You have an aspect that's going to create brand or some other protective piece, then I'd be more likely to be excited about it.
And last year there was a plan by some of the students, and it was to take care of kids. And unfortunately, it was a nice idea, but there was no way to make money on it. And, they should have gone back at the beginning and said, let's do an interview and talk to the parents and see if they're willing to pay a price where we can make this business model work. And they got to the end of the class, and they heard from our panel, well, how are you going to make money on this? Have you tested the market? And it just collapsed because it was a nice to have, but there was no market at that price in order to make it a business.
Were they bringing kids to on demand to a place?
Yeah.
There is a business called Kids Park that does that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they're now franchising and around, and that's the way to go.
Right.
Franchise, and now they're doing pretty well. But it was a tough struggle to begin with.
And they've been around for a long time.
And they've been around for
almost 20 years.
No.
I'm like 10 years?
Not even 10, about 7.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts?
Adding to what other people say, that the only thing I can think of that's distinctly different from the perspective of the entrepreneur starting a business is that you have to be passionate about the problem. So it's not sufficient to just have something that academically would work, but because it involves iterations and because it involves all these other things that you particularly also, whether it's industry experience or not, it's like you've really got to want to solve that problem, and stick with it. So it takes a lot to build a business, and so I think that there's something that makes a business right for you beyond just the business model. It's, are you meant to do it?
So I'll start this question with you, Jessica. A lot of the businesses that we see that come through, a lot of the business plans that we see in general and that come through 356 in the retail space struggle greatly with the issue of how do I add unique value? What you talked about, Phil, of have some degree of differentiation. How do you think about that, and how can somebody, as they're sitting drafting their idea, kind of plan for adding some degree of unique value or differentiation?
Well, I think that, adding unique value, I don't know. There's so much out there, right? We're such a mass consumers, and there's so much available to purchase that to do something truly unique, if it's solving a real problem, it probably already exists. To your extent, it's a brand differentiation, right? It's not like there aren't watches or there isn't jewelry or there isn't, grocery stores. It's just what's your difference in experience or brand that makes it unique. For me, I looked at a very big industry and very big space and thought that the incumbents had sort of aged and there wasn't a entry into that market that had a brand that would really resonate with people and also capitalize on experience. So for me, the differentiation was looking at studying all the benchmarks of all the companies that already existed and looked at what they do that really works and looked at how I could be different enough to make that a compelling choice for those, because for my product it's really people looking for a business opportunity and how that could be different. So I don't know if that answers the question around.
Well, there's over 400 brands of watches. Why does the world need another one? Technology been around for 500 years. We do have patented technology, though, believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah. That little flap that flaps. We've solved that.
Really run.
Yeah. So our point was sort of like to try to abstract. You talk about a want or a need. The understanding exactly why people would buy a new one, and then catering the product to that. Another way of putting that is, in making sure the product it was coming from somewhere, it meant something. Instead, it was for something. And the best example, that's not very clear, but the best example I can think of is music. Menudo was for a market, but Nirvana was from some place, and the product, I think you can look at out there, when it's for somebody or where it's from somebody, and we struggle with that too, and it needs to come from the youth market in order for it to be accepted in the youth market.
Well, we got iPods. That's sort of, is an example of a need there that was fulfilled by a company, but it could have been fulfilled by an entrepreneurial group. Certainly, it filled a need for a wide section of the population, not just the young at all. But one of the things related to that is looking for things that are changing, lifestyle changes, events that change habits, change needs, change desires, because change really creates opportunity. And if you can look around and see what's happening, you really can see possibly that opportunity. If the opportunity can be defined, you can then begin to realize some differentiation in terms of what's out there, because something is changing. When women joined the workforce back in the early 70s, it opened up a unique opportunity for retailers. First of all, there was an empty closet of career clothes. So right away you could zero it, but you can go on and on, 2-paycheck families and so forth. And so you look for significant changes, maybe not that big, but there are changes taking place all the time, and then various entrepreneurs are filling those needs created by the opportunity, which was created by the change. If I had to single in one top thing, that's what I would look at change. And health changes and health needs, aging population and their needs, getting spas that are more available to a greater population there. There's all kinds of things you can think about in retrospect. So the really what you have to do is try to determine what's happening now and how's that going to affect people's lifestyles, and is there something I can do about it?
There's an interesting study that I was looking at. One of the questions on our list was, how do you go about looking for these opportunities? Where do you go? Do you read books? Do you do this? And I think consumer and retail is very, hands-on, very, out there. You're walking the streets. You're noticing what people are doing. You're noticing the changes. And one of the things that, keeps coming up is this change of ethnicity in this country. Opens up a lot of opportunities. The Hispanic population, for instance, in this country, it's just exploded, and it's affected how not just Hispanics, but the Anglos are eating, what kind of foods, and how we dress, the music we listen to, the clothes we wear. When you look around, the idea of what is attractive and what's popular has changed in the last 10, 20 years. In subtle ways and not so subtle ways. But, just being aware of those changes, as Phil was saying, reaches so many different levels in how we live, and really being on top of that and being in touch with that. It's not just reading, it's not reading academic things, it's really about being out there walking the malls, going in the cities, traveling and reading magazines and seeing what is happening, not just in our own little world, but the rest of the population.
So on that, that's a great transition to my next question of where do you recommend that students go to come up with ideas? What locations, like articles or studies or walking the malls, what advice would you give to students who are hoping to come up with a business idea in the consumer retail space? Right?
Well, this is a pretty funny story to me, at least. I was on a plane once with one of our CEOs, and I was reading, Harvard Business Review and Fortune, I was looking over at him, it was like People Magazine.
I know, I love People.
What's with you, He said that nobody that buys our stuff is reading that,
right.
They're all reading this.
I know.
Us Weekly.
I love People Magazine.
He just liked it. That was just a clever way to catch up on celebrity gossip.
Reading the comments, I love Dilbert.
And observing, just observe people all the time and what they're reading, what they're doing, what movies are they going to, what are they wearing? Why are they wearing it?
Who's popular?
What kind of dancing are they doing?
Yeah.
What kind of music are they listening to? And then you can begin to look for the different segments, as was pointed out. I didn't know what age group you were talking about when you were talking about teens. I don't know whether you were talking about 13 to 19.
Teens are over.
They're over.
Yeah, teens are over.
No more.
No more teens. I would break into trade shows straight away. Yeah. Find out what industry you're into. Find out how to get in that trade show. It's usually not open to the public, at least the ones I go to, and try to get in there. It's awesome. Because you go to the trade show directory, and here's everybody's booth. You can see booth size is a replacement for revenue. Position in the trade show hall, you can see who's the old players, who are the new guys, and you can just looking at the trade show floor for me was really interesting. It's where I went to the Watch Trade Fair and see how those guys all set up. So I would go if you're interested in an industry but don't know where, go to the trade show.
And if not a proxy for revenue, at least how much money they've raised.
Yeah. Well, these is consumer products. You have revenue.
Right.
It's not. Yeah. I was here in '97. It's cannedham.com got funded. We didn't, but it is. You have to have revenue when you have consumer product.
Sometimes it's not so easy. There's a company of which one of the CEO is a Stanford graduate, and the designer is children's clothes. Infants and toddlers and up to age 6. It's called T Collections, and there's lots of children's clothes out there. So why are they different? Well, she gets her ideas for her designs globally, so a lot of it has Asian influence going back centuries, and puts those prints together. It's good quality, not inexpensive, and they've built a $6 million business in 2.5 years, and they actually make money. And they're growing that business. Now you could say, was there no change? Why? How did they, get themselves going that way? And so sometimes it just is just making a great product, even though that market doesn't look like anything has changed to give you that opportunity. We were involved with Gymboree. You know, these clothes are different than Gymboree's clothes. They're also more expensive. They're more like Jane and Jack, or Jack and Jill, whatever the hell they call that stupid company. But, I mean, that's, you know, so it's not always so clear-cut. Other things are clear-cut. There's a real need out there, and people just have not exposed themselves to capitalizing on it.
Now, a lot of times it happens, I'm sorry.
No.
Just one quick idea. When you're doing something you enjoy, like the entrepreneur who started the chain of spas, he was getting a massage because he loves massages. And his masseuse said, you know, there's a lot of massage therapists around. You know, and I know you're an entrepreneur. Why don't you set up a chain of spas or massage centers, sort of like Massage Envy, at a better price? Because a lot of people like to get massages, but they're so expensive. Maybe you can take that Massage Envy thing and tweak it and do something like that. And he said, you know, that's a great idea. So he was doing something he really believed in already. He was getting a massage. And he said, you know, I think that's a great idea. So if it's related to, and I'm sure.
What's his price?
$49 for an hour. And they're great massages. They're the same people that do it at Canyon Ranch. I mean, he has people who have worked at Canyon Ranch, which is the top, you know, place in the Tucson area, who are now working for his place because they get benefits. You know, he took the model of Starbucks. All his people are employees. They get benefits and vacations, where the other spas don't give their massage therapists benefits and full-time employment. So he learned from the successful business models and tried to apply it to an industry that was mom and pop and pretty fragmented. But he went into an area that he loved, which was massage.
I want to build on that point, because it's not where you look, but also maybe how you're looking.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And you're looking at one industry from the same way. I was a friend of mine is recovering entrepreneur, looking at a bunch of opportunities, and he's like, you know, it's amazing what you see when money isn't top of my list anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, think about 3 reasons why you're going to do what you're doing, and then think of that, but then throw it upside down and take your number 3 priority, put it on top, and see if you see things differently. And he's like, there's tons of opportunities if money's not your issue, which maybe not good business, but certainly trying to a different way, a different perspective of the same thing you're looking at.
Yeah, and you got to have that passion for it.
Yes.
Jessica, any thoughts?
I think I've started 2 companies, and 2 ideas came to me in different ways. The first one was, you know, a flash of inspiration on a treadmill, and as soon as I thought of it, I was like, that's it. That makes perfect sense, you know. And that was the Wedding Channel aggregated gift registry. But it took me years before that became a business plan and then a business. So I think patience is, to me, you know, but then the second one, it took me being interested in a market and then finding the right almost widget to put into that channel. So, and that took years of trying different things, and it's just the persistence and the looking, and I think looking the second time of how to come up with, you know, one was a flash inspiration, one was more of a workout of saying, wow, this channel is huge and it's growing and it's going to explode. Now what's the right thing to put into it to grow? And that took me, you know, I was really big into DIY and crafting, so I took every single class. I looked at every single, you know, retailer. I went to I think involving yourself in the industry is something I learned early on when I started Wedding Channel. I met Phil, and the company probably wouldn't exist today without his early retailer expertise. It's true. So, you know, if you don't know what you're doing, you've got to find somebody who does in that industry, or or you're going to be fraught with peril. But then, so I immediately the second time immersed myself in the industry, joined the trade associations, and I spent years in a learning phase because I recognized that I didn't want to make a mistake with, prematurely trying to think that I also realized that businesses are organic, living, breathing things. You don't have an idea and then that becomes a company. It's you have a company that evolves from continual changing and meeting the needs of as you learn more and you get more information. So I just began in the learning process and again, just taking it all in and trying to create out of that. And I still feel like you're always coming up with the idea every day as you continue to try to improve and grow your business.
One of the I find some pretty interesting ideas in other countries. I like to spend time in Europe. I'd like to spend time in Asia. So, for example, in alternative medicine, an interesting business that we're looking at now, Sino, is kind of professional acupuncture. There's a lot of really interesting things going on in Europe with nutrition. And so you find a lot of these kind of things that start up in other cultures that you can capitalize on here.
So you all need to travel. Leave school and travel.
And not worry about money and have lots of hobbies.
It all worked out.
Sounds like good advice. Before we turn over to the students for questions, we talk a lot and we have great, highly visible examples of entrepreneurs who come through the GSB and many of our classes that have been successful and had great ideas. Could you just take a few minutes and talk about some of the dogs that you've seen? I mean, what's some really just horrendous business ideas, and extrapolate from them? What are some of the characteristics that make those particularly unattractive as you think about them? I mean, it's easy to focus on the good stuff, but it's surprising how many bad ideas there are. Thoughts? You mentioned one, I think.
I don't think I should mention it.
Okay.
Sometimes, I don't
I tell you, I can only remember the good ones. Somehow my memory blanks out everything.
But what do you hear in a business plan? If you're not comfortable about a specific idea, when you see this component of a business plan, you see this attribute of a business idea, you lose interest in.
There's no revenue model.
Well,
There's no revenue.
There's no margin.
Yeah, also, like I must have seen for a period of time, at least one a week, if not two a week, of people in the juice business. I mean, juice every single kind of way you can imagine, all right? And it's hard to believe that we need any more different kinds of juices when you go to it. And so there's no differentiation, there's no reason for being. I mean, and it's not easy to get on those shelves in those grocery stores. So, I mean, just tons of juice. And then, of course, the big thing is health and wellness. I mean, some of these things don't look like they're even healthy or wellness. And then, so that's a whole nother area because people, say, boy, people are really interested in this. I'm going to produce a consumer product. So in the consumer product area, there's just tons of things that come across.
Or bars. I mean, there's just so many bars, and there's some interesting ones.
There's one that I think is really interesting. So far, I haven't gotten. I hope they've got finance. It's called Belly Bar. And what they do is they have nutritional bars for women who want to get pregnant or are pregnant and even after pregnancy. So they only have about an 18-month window, which is a problem with people. But they really have quality product, really focused in a niche, which Brent was talking about, and I hope they make it. But I try to get them financed, but it's hard sometimes.
I don't see a lot of deals like you guys do, but I do hear a lot of ideas, people bouncing stuff around, because once you're in a business, people are like, oh, what do you got? And the things that I kind of shudder about that are ideas that I guess all of these kind of fall into one category of like, is this a real honest, authentic idea that this person has, or is there something else in play here? Can you tell I took touchy-feely? Is there something else in play here that is motivating this group or person to start this business? Ideas that have a sort of twinge of anger or
can you give us an anger business? Because I'm curious.
No. But sort of like, I'll give you an example.
I'll give you an example.
Those guys over at XYZ don't know what they're doing. It's like if they only had this and this and that, it would totally work. Now, the guys over at XYZ are smart guys. They think about their business all day. And this person somehow wants to start a business to prove that the other guys are wrong. Now, that might be a motivator, but there is an anger there that it didn't feel, why exactly are you starting this business? The other ones are ideas that are tweaked to get funded. It's not, once you're funded, you can't, you got to do what you told people you do. And if you tweak your idea too much to get funded, the consumer doesn't care how you get funded. They care whether or not your product is good. So I see a lot of people go, oh, well, if we just did this, made it this kind of a juice, then maybe Phil will give me some money. And the other one was...
And then I got to drink it. They bring it there to, man, I have tasted some stuff.
The third one is just sort of like, I'd buy that. It's like data point 1. And it's like, well, you might want to start a business, but if you're overzealous and like, I got to start a business, it's like you start looking for evidence that would support you starting a business and instead of a real honest to goodness reason to have a business.
I think also that some of the business decisions, like if it's too capital intensive to start up, no matter how great an idea it is, it's going to be very hard to get it funded without having some proof of concept. You know, when we did retail, it got pretty expensive to open retail stores, and it takes millions of dollars. And if it's just an idea, it's going to be very, very hard to get that kind of funding. So unless you have relatives or friends that are willing, I've met so many guys who, our friend Ami. I mean, they can be great ideas, but if it takes $10 million to do a startup retail, you'll never get it.
Like Webvan?
No more. The other is if it's not differentiated enough, as we said earlier, you got to have a proof of concept that it's differentiated enough.
Very hard to get finance if it's a retail store unless you have at least one up. The key is really to have three, and all three being good. Then it's easy to get finance. But you got to have one of them up. They got to kick the tire, so to speak, and see that the business model really works, and that the customer out there is one.
Yeah, some ideas can get started less expensively, like on the internet. So if you can, that's hard too to get customers to come to you. But if you can prove your concept without having to open a retail store, that will be really, really much easier.
Any other thoughts? Right.
Well, somebody mentioned, Alex mentioned, I think, going to shows. That's how Tea Collection got distribution. They developed a line, and then they went and spent the money to go to a shows and got exposure that they could never have gotten. They have 500 specialty stores they sell today. The only way they got them is by going to the various shows and being exposed in a relatively efficient way.
How much do they have to spend to start up? Probably not very much.
They have not spent a lot of money. As a matter of fact, we're forcing them to raise some money now to grow the business. They'll double the business next year.
Okay, questions?
So we hear a lot about financing for kind of high-tech, biotech, those types of companies. You hear less about financing for consumer products, retail. I mean, if you're an early-stage company, what are the ways that you're thinking about getting funding?
Angels, individuals, friends and family, or angel groups. There are a lot of angel groups around the United States. And the initial funding to sort of get started probably will come from angels, not from the venture community.
And just give you some of the numbers. I was just looking at these numbers last week, and it's really incredible. I think that angels this year will invest about $60 billion. Wow. You just don't think about that. And the venture community, you keep kind of going up the hierarchy. The venture community, I think this year is $500 or $600 billion in buyouts. We'll reach nearly $1 trillion, and that doesn't include some of the family offices that are out there. So I think kind of the hierarchy is the angel community, then there's family offices that are really going to be pretty significant. A guy that most of we have a co-invest fund that's mainly family offices, and they look for opportunities that they can get involved in. I was just talking to Catherine about this. So, like the guy that had a Dwala, for example, he's now looking for something.
Funding.
Yeah.
That was another juice one.
Yeah, that was a juice. I was thinking the other Dwala guy. That was Greg. I was thinking of Stephen. He's now looking looking for deals to get involved in.
He is looking for something to
spend time. So those are, but I think like the angels and then people that actually do want to spend time in the business, and those are often family offices.
What's the range of the investment for those type of groups? Because the venture groups are much bigger and later stage. So the angel groups, how little and how much?
Well, they'll do hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we're working with one, little. To your point in terms of some of the ethnic things. Hispanic ice cream, and they're bringing in kind of hundreds of thousands of dollars from.
The angel group, I do angel work as well. Right? Yeah. There's a group called the Angel Forum here that I've been involved with a long time because eventually it grows into the venture investing, but hopefully. But we do anywhere from $100,000 to $400,000. There's about 21 angels. One nice thing about it, we create an LLC for each investment, so you're only dealing with one entity. You're not dealing with a lot of different people. which is a big advantage to any business of any size.
And you deal with startups as well as early stage?
First-time retail, bricks and mortar.
But not bricks and mortar, because you can't open a store for $100,000.
No, and we might not be the only investor, but, in terms of that. But
How did you guys start, Andy?
We did angel.
Yeah.
I was trying to think of something funny there, but I couldn't. We did angel. Same thing. It's like venture guys. It's like if they don't want to. I didn't want to take $5 million. And it's not going to be $300 million value in 18 months.
Yep.
So we did the angel knocking on doors. My practical experience. Somebody told me here when I was here is like 8-to-1 hit ratio. An employee of mine said the other day.
We missed an opportunity.
Yeah, he said, "Oh, I wish I invested, but I was in high school." Man, I'm that old, getting old. But we did a typical thing. I mean, we did 25 people, $50,000 a pop to get $1 million.
Great.
Is it
Wow.
around there?
How long did that take? What sort of timeline would you expect to raise $1 million?
That was the hardest phase of the business because I'm not a fundraiser. And we had a business plan. We graduated, June 14th. I drove to San Diego June 15th. Started making calls on June 16th. We had a business plan in September, and we closed in mid-December. And it was...
That's good.
That's very good.
That's very
not
good.
bad at all.
That's very good.
And it was about, we talked 6-to-1. So we talked about 120, 140 people. And every single person, except for one person that invested, I met with face-to-face. If you think you can get somebody to throw money at you without meeting you, it's really, really hard to do. So be prepared to sit and talk.
And you got 25 seconds, 50. So does everybody feel like 6 months is on the low end? On the balance, 6 months.
I think he did extremely well.
Yeah.
I think 6 months to a year is not an unreasonable time frame to anticipate to raise that kind of capital.
Why were you so successful? What were some of your keys to success?
He's
I think being healthy.
Juice. She's the juice.
It wasn't juice.
He had another kind of juice going.
Well, people that you knew. I mean, I hate to tell a story, but I closed 2 guys in it on the hot tub in Portola Valley. I mean,
He's going to drown him, but
what are you going to do in graduation? I start telling them, and they're like, "This is great, I'm in." I had no idea you guys had a bunch of money. I mean, I always thought you go to business school to figure out how to make money, but there's a lot of money right here, and try to figure out how to get that done. People have seen you work for 2 years, and they know who you are.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of people from Stanford, and then people that Stanford people knew, and then people from previous experience.
Great.
But same thing. It's like, I mean, one of these questions too is like, I was convinced this thing was going to work, and if you're not convinced, then you're never going to get money.
Good for you. That's good.
I'm going to have to leave, so if anybody has anything particularly related to me, unfortunately, a good friend of mine is being honored tonight in San Francisco, and it's a formal event. And I'm not Superman, so I can't change it. So I got to drive into San Francisco, change in my flat, and then get down to the SF MoMA. So I apologize for this conflict. I don't
Any
know.
questions specifically
You have
for
wonderful
Phil? I think he's
people
got-
here that can answer anything that I can.
You got 5 more minutes, or you taking your leaving
Yeah,
right
5
now?
more minutes.
Well, I think I better.
All right, we'll see you later, Phil. Thank
Just
you.
finding my car might be a problem.
Phil, thank you very much for coming.
Bye-bye.
So if your idea does involve starting a retail shop, I mean, is the takeaway from what you're saying that we should essentially just forget about it?
Very well.
There are certain ways you can get around it. You can lease space in an existing store to test your concept out.
Yeah.
Some people do that, it's hard. It's hard because the spa, it was family money, and it's significant because it's long-term
There are
leases.
guys that do this stuff. Like Steve Simon, in San Francisco, really cool guy, and Simon Properties. He really loves to finance retail startups, and so a lot of the property managers like to finance. Yeah, I like to finance kind of cool, interesting retail concepts, and because if they take off, they can expand them, throughout their property. So those are some of the best sources for retail.
Why have they funded? Because I've never found that.
What's that?
Do they fund method? Do you know?
Yeah, he's on the board for Method. Yeah, Steve's on the board for Method. So that's one.
That's great, because it's hard.
They've done a med spa. They've done kind of a pet bakery thing. And they'll do some pretty crazy things. They did what was the one that he showed me the other day? Oh, yeah, there was an eye care clinic thing. So
good. In any particular property in the Bay Area, or?
That one was in Arizona.
Okay, so good. Well, that's encouraging.
The property managers generally, if it's an interesting idea, I mean, it's not that expensive to them because they've got the space, and so they'll plug you in and just see if it works. And if it works, again, it's great for them because they can expand it out.
But if your retail location has to be at Stanford Shopping Center, you might be
Never.
There's trouble.
Never.
Which is where most business plans from here end up needing to be located. Some other?
That might be a business in and of itself, just taking Stanford students into.
Some other questions?
In thinking about doing market research for the product, how do you go about getting information from an existing competitor? I'm not sure if that makes sense. So I have an idea, and like say juices, I have an idea, and I think my idea has to be unique that's going to make it a different and better above and beyond. But I need to look at how well these other companies are doing in order to kind of do my proper due diligence. How do you go about doing that? Because I'm sure these other companies don't want to give you their information.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
You'd really be surprised.
I mean, industry associations. I mean, it's amazing. Like I can tell you, I know the revenue, the sales force count, the margin of every company in my industry practically by calling people up and asking them. You'd be amazed at what people will tell you when you ask. And what industry associations publish aggregate data often.
Former employees.
Yeah.
Also, just at the library, you can, all those databases
Articles.
are great. Articles.
Yeah.
When I used to have a lot more consulting projects, any industry, I'd go on there and put in the industry, and you'd find out so much information that's publicly available now. And a lot of companies are public in your industry that you're looking at, maybe not a direct competitor, but you go to the analyst reports. Right. They're fabulous. The information you get is out there.
And you'd be surprised. We've had a lot of teams that have come through, and you say, well, try and set up an interview, explain to them that you're Stanford students, and be honest. If it's something you're planning on starting up, say, hey, look, don't tell me anything confidential. If it makes you feel uncomfortable, this is a business school project, but I'm potentially thinking about doing this when I graduate. They'll sit down with you. I've had people say, all right, we're not going to share any information with you. I'll talk to you in very general terms about the industry, and students will walk out with marketing plans, pro forma by product line projections. It's amazing. People get excited about their businesses, and they just start talking. I mean,
well, they also want to hire you when your idea doesn't work.
Right.
It's like there's somebody bright that you can do that. I would also, I'd go into the store. If it's a product that sells on a shelf, then you do the math. You're like, okay, how much floor space is here? How much is this retailer dedicated to that one brand? How many inventory turns through there? How many locations do you think that they're in? And start multiplying to figure out market size. It's right there on a shelf. At least in our business, it's like whoever's got space outs or face outs has market share.
Yeah, and the retailers will tell you oftentimes, even if
the store manager, the person they're trying to sell.
I love this product.
I sold 40 of these last month. Oh wow, is that your biggest month? Well, no, that's about 1/2 of our biggest month, which is December. Oh, really?
Yeah, well, back to the analyst reports, if you're covering like the jewelry industry, you go to any public company and they have so much good information about the industry, not just that public company they're covering.
Not only public companies, and they're pretty good with the private businesses as well.
They will cover it in detail. I have spent hours over at that library and finding all kinds of industries.
And call the analysts. That's another group that loves to talk.
Yeah.
And your point is a good one. They particularly love to talk to students, and it's really easy to get information.
Yeah, this is the easiest part of the task.
Yeah. And another great source that students have found in the past too is suppliers. So if you're looking, they're looking at additional customers, additional clients. If you talk to somebody who's supplying one of your potential competitors with a key ingredient or product, they're thinking of you as a potential follow-on customer. They'll talk your ear off about why they're better and what they can do.
What size ranges of kind of funding needs are you seeing for brands being started up? And this is a brand that's going to sell to existing doors or online. So not starting at a retail location? And is there a sweet spot from an investor standpoint?
Well, again, it was through those steps that we went through. Individual angels will literally fund in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Family offices, you get up into the kind of $1 million, and then more institutional capital, you got to be thinking more towards $5 million, like Andy said.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also return too. I mean, we use a lot of VC comps in pricing our deal to the angel network, because you have to know what the market for money is. So if it's a 30 or 40% return, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So no sweet spot. I mean, I would say there's a sweet spot not in the amount you raise, but the return that you're advertising.
Yeah, I just wondering more. Have you guys seen brands that are going to require $5 million, $10 million just get themselves started? Or is it more always in the kind of $500K to $2 million range?
Start smaller.
Yeah, startup. It's going to be a lot.
Oh boy, you're not gonna. Yeah.
It's going to be less. Maybe in technology, $5 million.
But not in consumer.
And not in consumer.
And you can do it these different ways. You can do it on the.
How much did you guys raise initially? $1 million?
$1 million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's then 3 years later when you start to grow is the next problem.
Yeah.
But at least you have something to show. I mean, you have a bigger audience of investors if you have something to show for it.
And when you're talking about, this is an issue that comes up pretty frequently, when you're talking about raising $1 million, what kind of pre-money valuation are you seeing angels kind of interested in with that? Is $1 million half your company or 10%?
You probably see it on more. I don't know if you guys see the deal, but we had it to 32%, so it was like a $2 million pre-money, based on an exit in 5 years of $20 million. Something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a function of how convincing you are. People are obviously investing on they're running their own math, and so if you're, it's just how convincing your business model is on a 5-year kind of exit. And so.
But even with a good model, it's not a $20 million pre-money.
No. I'm involved in one now that was a $9 million pre-money, but it's a technology consumer product. I mean, it's a very defensible, patent protected, and big box kind of consumer retail type distribution channel. So it's either going to be a $300 million company or nothing. Yeah. So that I would say that it's not. I mean, it happens.
But that is that kind of can you justify or can you feel confident in that? Is there a logical path to in 5 years it being a $300 million company? Obviously there is. And
I think that also, what's your exit strategy and your long-term plan for the company also dictates who you're going to raise money from and how much and why. If you're going to go get institutional capital, their business is creating an exit and returning money to their limited partners. Mm-hmm. So you need to want to sell the company, right? So with my second business, I raised money very differently because I didn't want to sell. I don't want an exit. I want to run it and grow it. So I wanted people who wanted dividends, and I was able to go back to people who don't typically invest that way because they were my first investors in Wedding Channel. Just said, okay, here you go. So it was a very easy and short conversation, and these are the different deal terms. But you have to get, what are you trying to do in your business? Is this something that you want to raise money for, and that implies a whole different set of things about how you're going to run that company and what that experience is going to be like, versus if you're trying to do something differently. I think there's nothing wrong with trying to go, one of the ways to fund a company is through revenue, and that's, to me, that was very, with Wedding Channel, we raised $120 million. It's a very, very capitalized company, and that was just the vintage, of 99, but with Luxe, I think it has the same opportunity, and that to me is purposely keeping that small. I'm actually talking to my investors now who want to kind of step it up a notch and put in some more money and grow it a little faster, but it's.
But you only needed a $60 or $70 million seed round for
no, sub $1 million, because what are you going to do with it? You know what I mean? In terms of what do you need the money for? I think it's really easy from a business school mentality to think about what are the numbers of how you raise money and what the return is and all that stuff. And you can play in Excel all day long, and you can build a company of any size, and you can have the right margins, and you can do all this stuff. Or you can go make a prototype and start selling it. And I think a lot of times as a business school person, you can kind of feel above going out and doing a trunk show and going out and doing a trade show, going door to door and seeing if you can get some sales. Like, you need to do something to get feedback to do it. And so, you can you can also keep it real in terms of what your business is and what do you really need to start it. Because I think you should operate from the premise of least to most. What is it that you need to go prove that concept and refine it and make it the size of idea that it truly is. So if you, obviously we all want to start a big company. I wouldn't do something if I didn't think it was a big market opportunity, because it just wouldn't be worth my time in my mind. But at the same time, the size of the opportunity isn't always correlated to the size of capital you need to go start it. So if you can maintain, ownership and control and do all those things with less money, the goal isn't to go get a lot of money, or to finance a company in a particular way. The goal is to create this company and then work backwards and say, well, how much capital do I really need? How am I going to spend it? Over what course of time? How would having money change that? Is it a market opportunity that's about to close? Is it something that needs to be rushed and accelerated? Is it something that there's a lot of development work before, pre-revenue? Or is it something where literally you could do something not perfect, but you could get going and create revenue in a short course and fund it, that way through just growth?
We have time for one last question. All right, great. Well, thank you all very much.